fine. Good afternoon to you all students. Hi students, how are you? I hope you all are fine and you all are doing well. Welcome to our today's online class students. Warm greetings to you all. So now we are studying about chapter 9. So what's the title of our chapter? So data types, variables and expressions, isn't it? So before I am going to start about today's portion, so just recall what are things you have studied in the last class, okay? So last class I asked you to study some portions, isn't it? So what are the portions I asked you to study? So are you remembering? So last class you have studied about some data types as well as memory locations, isn't it? So how many fundamental data types are there totally? 5. What are they? Int, float, double, then void, isn't it? Then memory representation of each data type. So last class we have studied about memory representation for each data type, isn't it? So what's the memory representation for int data type? So int how many bytes? 2 bytes. In Dev C++ how many bytes? 4 bytes, isn't it? Yes. So today we are going to study about variables, okay? So first topic is variables. So what do you mean by variables? Okay. So the very important question, what do you mean by variable? So this is the definition for variable, okay? So mark it. This is the definition for variable. So what do you mean by variable means? Variables are user defined names, okay? So name itself having user defined. What do you mean by user defined? So who is the user? Suppose you are writing the program means, so you are the user. The person who wrote the program or person who writes the program, we are calling as a user. If you are writing a program means, so you are the user. Suppose I am writing the program means I am the user. Okay. So variables are user defined names. So that is the particular user is defining particular names for the variables. Okay. So this is the definition. Just read it. Variables are user defined names assigned to specific memory locations in which values are stored. Okay. For example, listen. The value of a equal to 5. Okay. The value of a equal to 5. So a equal to 5. What's the data type 5? 5 means you will represent the data type as int, isn't it? Because it's a number. So integer means natural number, whole numbers, all the numbers will come under integer data type. That is data type int, isn't it? So I am declaring a variable called a equal to 5. So what's the meaning? The value of a is 5. The a we are calling as a variable. Understand? So the a we are calling as a variable. So already in the last class we have studied. So each and everything will have memory representation, isn't it? So if in the program you are representing the a equal to 5 means a is the variable, immediately the program will allocate some space for the variable a. Understand? The variable a, the program, that means the compiler will allocate some space for the variable a. What's the value of a? 5. The meaning is the value 5 is stored in the particular memory location inside the memory. Understood now? What do you mean by variable? So based on the data type, it will allocate space. So you are representing the data type is int means it will allocate how many space? Int means memory location is 4 bytes. Float means likewise 4 bytes. Likewise the character means 1 byte. Based on the data type, the memory location will change. Understood what do you mean by variables? Now read it. Variables are the user defined mean. That means the person who is writing the program, that person will define some variable. Okay. Means assigned to specific memory location. That only, for that only an example I said a equal to 5 means the variable a is assigned to the particular memory location in which the values are stored. What's the meaning? The value of a equal to 5 means the variable a has the value 5, it is stored in the particular memory location. Understood? What do you mean by variable? So what's the other name of variable means identifiers. Okay. So what's the other name of variables? Identifiers. Important one more question, mark it. The other name of variable is identifier. Okay. So if you are defining some variable, some rules will be there. Okay, so you are, for example, int A, int B, or float A, float B. So based on the data types, you are naming the variable. So if you are defining the variable means you should follow some rules. Understand? So we are calling such variables or identifiers are called as symbolic variables. Understood what do you mean by symbolic variables? So variables other name is identifiers. The rules, the particular rule for naming the particular identifier, we are calling as in which one? Symbolic variables. Understand? So there are two values are there for symbolic variable. Okay. How many values are there for symbolic variable? Two. What are they? R value and L value. Okay. How many values are there for symbolic variable? Two. What are they? R value and L value. Understood? R means the data stored in memory location. For example, A equal to 5 means what's the data? 5 is the, sorry, A is the R value means the data stored in memory location. So what's the variable there? A. So the A is represented by R value. Okay. Then L value means memory address in which R value is stored. For example, listen carefully. I am giving the variable A equal to 5. So the value 5 is stored in the particular place in the memory. Okay. So that is represented by the R value and the address, in which address the value A is stored. That we are calling as in which value? L value. Understood? So what are things you have studied? What do you mean by variable? Then what do you mean by symbolic variable? So symbolic variable contain two values. What are they? R value and L value. R value means the data in the particular memory location. L value means memory address. That's important. Understood? Now see this slide. Then you will get understand. Okay. See, like this only lot of spaces are there in the memory. Okay. Likewise, lot of spaces will be there in the memory. Okay. Listen carefully. Here you are declaring two variables. Understood? How many variables you are declaring? Two variables. What are they? num1 and num2. Okay. How many variables you are declaring? Two variables. What are they? num1 and num2. So next you are storing the value of num1 you are giving us 65 and the value of num2 you are giving us 100. Understood? What's the value of num1? 65 and what's the value of num2? 100. Understood? So you have studied symbolic variables have two values. What are the value? R value as well as L value. What do you mean by R value? Data stored in the memory. So what are the data you have stored? 165. So this is we are calling as an R value. Understood what do you mean by R value? R value means this is the memory. So the memory, lot of memory blocks are there in this memory. So two values or two data you have stored. What are the data? 165. So this we are calling as an which value? R value. Understood what I mean by R value? Then L value means memory addresses. So see, have you seen 0x125e, 0x126e? Likewise lot of numbers are there. So each and every block will have separate memory address. Okay. So the values we are storing, two values we are stored. What are the values? 100 and 65. The 100 is stored in the which place? Just to say, see and read it. Which place? Which address? 0x127e. And 65 is stored in which address? 0x130e. So this address we are calling as an L value. Understand what do you mean by L value and R value? L value means the memory address in which the data is stored, that is called L value. R value means the data stored. What are the data? 165. So the data we are calling as an R value and the memory address for the data. That means 0x127e and 0x130e. These two things we are calling as an L value. Understood? What do you mean by R value and L value? Okay. So always the memory address are represented in form of hexadecimal values. Important one more question. Just mark it. So memory addresses are in the form of hexadecimal values. Already in the second chapter you have studied hexadecimal values starts with the variable value 0x. That already you have studied. Understood? Okay. So next one is declaration of variables. Okay, what do you mean by declaration? Okay, so now we have studied about what do you mean by variables. Now we are going to study about declaration of variables. Okay, so in a program, if you need to use some variables, before you are using the variables, you should declare. Understood? For example, you are going to add two numbers. Consider A and B. You are going to add two numbers A and B. A equal to 5 and B equal to 10. So what's the formula for adding two numbers? A plus B. Okay. So you are using how many variables? Two. What are they? A and B. Okay. So if you are using these two variables, so before you are using these variables, you should declare the variable. What do you mean by declare means? What do you mean by declaration means? You should specify the type of the variable. Okay. So you are using A and B and you are going to add. That is A plus B. So you are giving the value A equal to 5 and B equal to 10. Okay. So 5 and 10. So 5 and 10 means it is belong to which data type? Number. So it is belong to which data type? Integer. Suppose 5.5 and 10.5. So it belongs to which data type? Float. Understood? So you should declare the variable. That means the first step you should declare. That is int A and int B. What's the meaning? A and B, you are using the value as a integer. Float A comma float B. What's the meaning? You are using point values. Understood? That one we are calling as a declaration. Understood what I mean by declaration? So before you are going to use any variable in the program, you should declare. Okay. So if you are declaring the variable, immediately if you are declaring the variable in the program, immediately the compiler will allocate some memory space. Okay, in the memory. For example, you are declaring two variables, int A and B. Okay. So immediately the compiler will allocate some space for the variable 2. What are the variables? A and B. You are declaring as a data type int. So how many space it will allocate? Normally integer how many space? This is plus how many space? 4 bytes. So it will allocate 4 byte space in the memory. Understood? Understood? Okay. So each and every variable you should declare as a which type. That variable belongs to which type. Sometimes it will belong to character. If you are using a character A, B, C, D, likewise character means you should use character. If you are using a normal integers, numbers means you should declare a variable as int. Sometimes you are using a variable as a point numbers 5.6, 10.5 like that means you should declare a variable as float. Understand? So before you are using the variable, you should declare the variable. That variable belongs to which type. Okay. So more than one variable also you can declare in the same statement. Okay. In the same line itself you can able to declare more than one variable. But what's the condition means? So you can, based on your wish, you can able to use lot of variables. A, B, C, D, E, F, likewise lot of variables you can use. What's the condition means? Each and every variable should be separated using commas. For example, 3 variables you are using. Okay, A, B and C of data type int. So how many variables I said? 3. A, B and C. So this 3 variables should be separated using which symbol? Comma symbol. So int A comma B comma C. Understood what I mean by declaration of variables? Yes. So listen. So this is the syntax for declaration of variable. Each and everything syntax is very important. Okay. So syntax is nothing but just like a formula what you are studying in a mathematics. Okay. Syntax is similar to the formula you are studying in mathematics. Okay. So listen. How you need to declare a variable? Data type. First one you should declare data type. Variable 1, variable 2, variable 3 up to variable n. Any number of variables you can declare. Okay. Example they are giving. Listen carefully. So data type. Here how many variables they are giving means 3 variables. What are the variables? Num1, num2 and sum. Understood how many variables they are giving? 3. What are they? Num1, num2 and sum. So these 3 variables are belonging to which data type? Int. So see the syntax. Based on the syntax only they are giving. First one is data type. So what's the data type? Int. So variable 1. What's the first variable? Num1. So next one is variable 2. What's the second variable? num2. What's the third variable? Sum. Understood? So 3 variables you are using. So 3 variables are separated using which symbol? Comma symbol. So at last you should give semicolon. First you should mention data type, then variable separated by comma symbol. Okay. So that only they are giving. In this example you have declared 3 variables. So this line we are calling as a variable declaration. Okay. So next we are going to study about programs. In each and every programs variable declaration will be there. You should know which line is a variable declaration. Okay. Like this int num1 comma num2 or float something. So the variables along with data type you are giving, that is called variable declaration. Understand? Okay. So what's the meaning here? Int num1, num2 and sum. So meaning is the 3 variables are belonging to data type integer. That means only you can use integer value for 3 variables. Okay. So immediately if you are giving this one, the compiler will allocate the space for how many variables? 3 variables. What are they? num1, num2. Understood? See this example. How many variables you are declaring? num1, num2 and sum. Okay. So here they are giving 2 variables. First 2. num1 and num2. So how many spaces will be allocated for the data type int? In Dev C++ for int, how many memory location spaces are there totally? 4 bytes. So 4 places. For num1, 4th place. 1, 2, 3, 4. As well as num2, 4 spaces. Understood? So here which one is the R value? num1 and num2 is the R value. And which one is the L value? This memory address. Understood? Okay. So next, listen. Next we are going to see a simple program. So you are declaring some variable. Okay, you are declaring, last example you have studied, you have declared some variable. But you are not giving any values for the variable. Okay, for example, you are going to add 2 numbers. Okay, A and B or num1 and num2. But you are not giving any values for the variable num1 and num2. Okay, you are not giving any values for the variable. Once you declare a variable, what's the compiler will do? Immediately it will allocate space for the variable. So here 3 variables you are using. What are they? num1, num2 and sum. Okay, but so you are using only 2 variables, num1 and num2. So immediately the compiler will allocate some spaces for the variable num1 and num2 in the memory. But you are not giving any values for the variable. Okay, so if you are not giving any values, that space will occupy the num1 and num2 space will be occupied by some unknown value. Because you are not giving any values for the 2 variables, no. So that space is occupied by some unknown values. Okay, so that unknown values are called as junk or garbage values. Important question. What do you mean by junk or garbage values? Okay, what do you mean by junk or garbage values? So you are declaring some variable, but you are not giving any initial value. But the variables, the memory space, some memory space will allocated for the variables by some unknown value. Because you are not giving any initial value, some unknown value is occupied by that variable. That values are called as which one? Junk values or garbage values. Understood what do you mean by junk value or garbage value? Okay. So see, this is the sample program. So what's the first step? What's the first step for writing a program? You should write a header file. So what's the header file? Hash include IOStream. That already you have studied. So what's the header file? Hash include IOStream. What's the next stream? What's the use of IOStream? All the input and output operations will come under header file. What are the input and output operations? C in, C out. Everything will come under the header file IOStream. Okay. Next one. Using namespace std. That's the second line. That's the identifier, isn't it? Next, third line is the main of function. This is the framework for the program already you have studied. Next, int main of. Here only you are going to write the main contents of the program. Okay, into main of, then open brace and close brace. Listen carefully. So what's this line? What's the name of this line? Int num1, comma num2, comma sum. What's the name of this line? Variable declaration. Okay. So you have declared how many variables? 3. What are they? num1, num2 and sum. Okay. Next, So in the output screen, you are going to print each variables. Okay, in the output screen, you are going to print each variables. So for output screen, which one you should use? To get the output means which one you should use? C out. Which statement? C out. Understood? So C out, then this symbol. First I am going to print the variable num1. Next, endl. What's the meaning of endl? The line is ending there. Understood? Next, listen. Next, next I am going to print the variable num2. Okay, then endl. Next, listen, I am going to add these two variables. What are the variables? Num1 and num2. Understood? Then I am closing the program using close brace. Listen carefully. Here you have declared two variables num1 and num2, but you are not giving any values for the variable. Whether you are giving any values for the variable? No. So this num1 and num2 spaces will be occupied by some unknown values. That values we are calling as junk values or garbage values. Understood what do you mean by junk values or garbage values? Okay. Next one is initialization of variables. Okay. What do you mean by initialization? So already we have studied about variables and also variable without initial values. Next we are going to study about initialization of variables. Okay. So what do you mean by initialization means? So you are assigning some initial values to the variables. Understood? You are assigning some initial value to the variable. That process we are calling as an initialization. Understood? What do you mean by initialization? So if you are going to declare some variable, during the declaration time, you are assigning some initial values. That process we are calling as which one? Initialization. Important 2 mark question or 1 mark question. Underline it. What do you mean by initialization? So you are declaring a variable itself, you are assigning some initial values. That process we are calling as an initialization. Understood? Listen carefully. So in this example, you are giving int num equal to 100. Okay. Next, float. What's the meaning of this one? The variable. What's the variable name here? Num. The variable num is belong to the data type int. That means you are using some numbers. Okay. Next, float pi equal to 3.14. So here it is a point number. So you should represent the data type as float. Next one. So after the decimal point numbers, you are using some more point. So you are using a double. Okay. So how many data types? Int, float and double. But each variable, what are the variables? Num, pi and price. Okay, 3 variables. So 3 variables, you are giving some initial values. This is the initial value, 100, 3.14, 231.45. Okay, this is the initial values. So you during declaration itself, you are giving some values. This one we are calling as an initialization. Understand? So these values you can able to change. During the execution of the program, you can able to change also. Understood? So see the program, listen carefully. So I'm going to write a program. So read the question first. C++ program to find curved surface area of a cylinder. Okay. So you are going to find a curved surface area of a cylinder. So in the question itself, they are giving the formula for curved surface area. So what's the formula for curved surface area? 2 pi RH. Okay. So what's the formula? 2 pi RH. Understood? Listen. 2 pi RH. What do you mean by R? R means radius. H means height. Pi is a constant. So how many variables you need? Just think and say. So in a program, you are going to calculate curved surface area. For that, how many variables you need? So here radius is there, height is there, pi is there, then curved surface area is there. So this much of variables you need to use inside the program, isn't it? So before you should use the variables inside the program, you should declare the variable at the top, isn't it? So listen carefully. What's the first step for writing the program? Header file. What's the header file? Hash include iostream. What's the second line? So this header file till this main of function is common for all the program. So don't write blunder mistake in here. Okay. So what's the header file? IOStream hash include IOStream. Then next one is using namespace std. Then semicolon. Then what's the third line? Maina function. What's the maina? Int maina. So inside the maina function, immediately open brace. Okay. So immediately, so you think you need to remember. So you should declare a variable. So already I said, read the question and identify how many variables you should need. You need a radius, height, pi and curved surface area. Okay. So listen carefully. So rate the value of pi is, what's the constant value of pi? Constant value of pi is 3.14. So that's whether the 3.14 is the data type belongs to int? No. Point number. No. So point number means you should declare the variable with the data type float. Isn't it? So listen carefully. So you are declaring a data type as float. So initially you are giving, this is called initialization. Okay. So you are giving the value of pi in the declaration itself. So the value you are assigning in the declaration itself means you are calling as a initialization, isn't it? So you are giving the value pi equal to 3.14. Then comma. Then what are the variables you need? What are the variables you need? Radius, height and curved surface area. Curved surface area means CSA. Then short form they are giving CSA for calculating the curved surface area. Understood? How many variables you need? Pi, radius, height and curved surface area. So the value of pi is 3.14. You have initialized in the declaration itself. Comma, radius, then comma, height, comma, curved surface area. So this much of variables you are going to use inside the program. Understood? Okay. Then just think, next you should display some details in the output screen. Isn't it? You are going to calculate curved surface area and you are going to display the details about curved surface area of a cylinder. Okay. So what are the things you are giving inside Cout that will displayed in the output screen? Okay. So which thing you should give? Cout. So inside you are giving curved surface area of a cylinder. One just like a heading you are giving. So what are things you are giving in Cout? The same thing it will display in the output screen. Okay. Just like a heading you are giving curved surface area of a cylinder. Next, what's the requirement you need? What's the requirement? Radius you need, isn't it? So in the output screen giving enter radius. So the user will enter the radius here. Okay. So radius you have entered. So what are the things you have given in an output screen? That one you should give input. Isn't it? Without giving input whether you will get the output? No. So for that, listen, enter radius in centimeters. So which one you should give for this radius as a input? Radius. Already you have declared. So what are the variables you have declared? That variable only you are giving, you should give as an input. For radius, which variable you are giving? Same variable. Here you are giving capital letter means same thing you should give here. Here small letter means here also you should give small letter. Same variable. So radius, which variable you are giving? Radius. So C in radius. Then semicolon. So radius you have entered. Next, what's the next step? You should enter the height. So enter height in centimeter. So height you should give in you are giving in which variable? Height. So input C in height. So pi already you have given the value. Radius you have entered. The user will enter the radius. Height also you are given. The user will enter the height. Next you are going to calculate curved surface area. Okay. Now write the formula. CSA equal to, that is curved surface area. What's the formula? 2 pi RH. Okay. For that 2 into pi into RH. What do you mean by R? Radius. That already you have giving. Isn't it? Radius. So radius. So this one in bracket, inside the bracket, into height. 2 pi RH. Height is giving in the variable height. Understood? So what are the variable? Don't write here 2 pi RH. So here you give R means no problem. Here also you can give R. So here you are giving radius. So you should give radius. Here you are giving height. So here also you should give height. So what are the variables you are giving? The same variable only you should use inside the formula. Understood? Okay. So now you are going to display curved surface area you have calculated. Then you are going to display the radius separately, height separately and curved surface area separately. So to display the output, which which statement you should give? Cout. So Cout. Radius you are given in which variable? Which variable? radius. So you are calling the variable radius. Then centimeter, that means radius you are entering, no, that one you should display in the unit centimeter. Understood? Next, height. Height you are giving in which variable? Height. So that also displayed in centimeter. Next, you are going to display curved surface area. Curved surface area given in which variable? CSA, that is in square centimeter. Understood? Now see the output. So see that this is the output. So output means which one? The C out. What are the lines you are giving in C out? That only displayed in output. So which is the first line you are giving in C out? Curved surface area of a cylinder. See? Curved surface area of a cylinder. Okay. What's the next line in C out? Enter radius in centimeter. So enter radius in centimeter. So here the user is entering the radius as a 7. Okay. So here the radius value is 7. Okay. Next. Enter height in centimeter. So enter height in centimeter. So height value you are giving us a 20. Understood? Now the formula is calculating. Next, what's the C out screen? C out radius. So what's the value of radius now? Already handed. What's the value of radius? 7 centimeter. See, radius is 7 centimeter. Next, what's the value of height? So next C out is given in height. So height. What's the value of height? 20 centimeter. Next, curved surface area of a cylinder. So curved surface area, immediately you are calling the variable CSA. So immediately the control will flow to this line CSA. So here it will calculate 2 into pi into r into height. What's the value? 2 into pi? 3.14 into radius. What value you have entered? 7. Into height, what value you have entered? 20. So altogether you have multiplied and you are getting the answer 879.2 square centimeter. Understood how you are getting the value? This is the sample program in C++. Understood? Understood or not? Yes. Okay. So, likewise you need to initialize more than, so if you need to initialize 3 or 4 or 5 variables of same data type, each variable you can given in the same line, but it should separated with comma symbol. See, one example they are giving, cx1 equal to -1, comma x2 equal to 1, comma x3, comma n. All the, what are the variables here? x1, x2, x3 and n. So all the 3 variables are belong to data type int. Here you are initializing 2 values for the 2 variables. What are they? The value of x1 equal to -1 and value of x2 equal to 1. Understood? Okay. Next heading is dynamic initialization. Okay. So dynamic initialization means, so already you have initialized some values for the variables. Okay. So during execution of the program, you are giving some values. Understood? Already in the last program you have seen, no? Enter radius. The user is entering the radius as 7. Enter height. The user is entering the height as some value. Likewise, you are initializing the values during execution of the program. That process we are calling as which one? Dynamic initialization. Important 2 mark question. So what do you mean by dynamic initialization? So variable you have declared in the program. So but you are initializing the values during the execution of the program. That process we are calling as which one? Dynamic initialization. Understood? Example C. Int num1, num2, sum. So what's the meaning? You are declaring 3 variables. What are the variables? num1, num2 and sum. Okay. Next, you are going to add 2 values. What are the values? num1 and num2, and storing the result in the variable sum. And you are storing the result in the variable sum. Okay. So sum equal to num1 plus num2. For example, already first you are giving the value of num1 is 5 and the value of num2 is 10. So what's the calculation here? 5 plus 10. So the answer you are getting is 15. So the value you are giving in the execution and you are getting a new value called 15. So that we are calling as which one? Dynamic initialization. Understood what I mean by dynamic initialization? Yes. So now we are going to study one sample program for dynamic initialization. Okay, listen. So what's the first step for writing a program? First, header file. What's the header file? Hash include iostream. So what's the second line? Using namespace std. Then what's the third line? Int mainf. Okay, then open brace. Same program. Okay, so here you are initializing 2 variables. What are the variables? num1 and num2. So two variables are of data type int. What's the meaning? So you are going to use only numbers for the variables num1 and num2. Okay. Next, you are going to display these two numbers in the output screen. So to displaying in the output screen, which statement you should give? Cout. Okay. So cout, enter number 1. Okay. So the user will enter the number in the output screen. Understood? So some number, enter number 1. So here you are getting the number. So for that you should give input. Then only the program will accept the number. So input, which one you should give? Which is statement? Cin. So you are giving number 1. So for number 1, which variable? Num1. You should call the variable num1. Okay. Next you are entering the second number. So in output screen you should call, the statement will come means which one you should give? Cout. Cout, enter number 2. So you need to give input for the number 2. So for input for the number 2 means which variable? Num2. So you should call cin num2. Understood? Next, you are going to add these two numbers. What are the numbers? Num1 and num2. Understood? You are going to add two numbers. What are the numbers? Num1 and num2. Okay. So this one we are calling as a dynamic initialization. Okay. So in next one you are going to listen carefully. You are going to print the average. What's the value of, what's the meaning of average? So particular things you are adding, that one divided by the total number of things. So here how many? 2. So the 2, num1 and num2, that answer is stored in the value sum. So sum divided by 2. Listen, you are entering two numbers. That number is added in the output screen. So in the output screen itself the number is added. That process we are calling as which one? Dynamic initialization. Okay. Then after addition you are calculating average. See what are the things it will come in the output screen. First one is in cout, which line will be there? Enter number 1. Okay. So the user is entering the number 1 is 78. Next. So the number 1, num1 is getting by the number 78. Next, enter number 2, enter number 2. So you are entering the number 2 as 65. So num2 is getting the number as 65. What's the next line? Int sum equal to num1 plus num2. Okay. So then what's the value of num1? 78 plus 65. Okay. So this two number is added in the output screen. This is called dynamic initialization. Next, what's the next line? Average. Average means sum divided by 2. Okay. So 151 something will come. So divided by 2, the answer you will get is 71. Understood what I mean by dynamic initialization? Okay. Next, we are going to see a program to find perimeter and the area of a circle. Okay. Next, we are going to study a program to find perimeter and the area of a circle. Okay. Listen, area of a semicircle. So what's the first thing? You should declare. Sorry, first thing is you should give header file. What's the header file? Hash include iostream. What's the second thing? Using namespace std. What's the next line? Main of. Okay. Next, so here you are going to calculate two things. What are the things? Perimeter as well as area of a circle. Okay. So what's the formula for perimeter? 2 pi r. Isn't it? 2 pi r. Then what's the area of a circle? 2 pi r square. Okay. Two things. So what are things you need? What are the variables you need to declare? Pi as well as radius. Okay. Pi as well as radius. So radius you are giving in integer. So some numbers, the 7, 8, 9, 10. So it is belong to a integer. So you are declaring the variable radius is the data type int. Understood why you are declaring the variable data type radius as a int? Because you are giving some integer or number int. So int radius. Understood. Next, you are using in the formula you are using a pi. Pi, the value of pi is 3.14. Point numbers. So point numbers means you should declare the data type as float. Okay. Point numbers means you should declare the data type as float. Okay. So float pi equal to 3.14. Now understood why you are declaring variable radius as a int and float. In radius you are giving only normal integer, not a point numbers. So you are declaring variable with data type int. But float you are using a point number. So it is declaring data type as float. Understood? Yes. Next, in the output screen you are entering enter radius in centimeter. So output you should get means you should give proper input. So input in for which statement? For giving input Cin. See in for radius, which variable you have declared? Radius. That variable you should call. So you listen carefully. Each and every line will end with semicolon. Understood? Next, listen. So here you are going to calculate the formula with data types. Okay, here you are going to calculate the formula with data types. So because the answer will come in point numbers. Why? Both perimeter and area, the answer will come in point numbers. Why? The value of pi is 3.14. So the answer will come automatically. The answer will come with point number. So you are declaring the data type as float perimeter and float area. Understood? What's the formula for float? 2 pi. That means pi plus 2 square r. Okay, 2 pi square r. There is semicircle, no? So pi plus 2 square into r. R means what? Radius. Okay. Next, area. What's the formula for area? Pi r square. So semicircle divided by 2. Okay. So pi r square. What is the radius you are giving in a variable? Radius. So pi r. Radius into radius divided by 2. So these two things you are giving with the data type and calculated output screen. So we are calling as which one? Dynamic initialization. Okay. So now you have calculated. What are things you have calculated? Perimeter as well as area. So you should print perimeter as well as area. So in C out you are giving perimeter of a semicircle is. Perimeter you are storing in the variable. Which variable? Perimeter. So you should call the variable perimeter in centimeter. Next, area of a semicircle. Area of a semicircle you are storing in the variable. Which variable? Area. So you should call the variable area in square centimeter. Area always in unit square centimeter. Perimeter in centimeter. Understood? See the output. So what output will come? First in C, enter radius. So user is enter radius in 14. So now the formula. Next, what's the output? C out perimeter of the semicircle. So automatically the control flows to perimeter. So it will calculate pi plus 2 into square radius. What's the value you are getting? 71.96 centimeter. Next, area of a semicircle. So area, automatically the control flows to area. What's the value? Pi r square. That means radius into radius. So what's the answer you are getting? 307.72. See, all the answers you are getting in point number. So only you are giving here the data type as float. Sometimes you are given the data type as in, means you will get error message. Understood? Understood or not? Yes. Okay. So today you have studied. What are things you have studied? What do you mean by variables? Then variable declaration, initialization and dynamic initialization, and some 3 sample programs. Okay. So after completion of this session, so you should study and write. What do you mean by variables? What do you mean by variable declaration? What do you mean by dynamic initialization? What do you mean by initialization? This for 2 more questions as well as 3 programs I taught. All these things you should study and write in your computer notebook. So this is the assignment for you. Okay, time over students. Remaining you can continue in the next class. Thank you students. Thank you, study well.